The visitor in the mirror. The night air was still as I made my way up the path to my house. My feet dragged and my mind buzzed with exhaustion after a 12-hour shift. I fumbled with my keys, cursing the dim porch light, and finally got the door open. Silence greeted me, thick and oppressive, almost as if it had been waiting for me. I dropped my keys on the small table by the entrance, my footsteps echoing faintly as I walked down the hallway. Normally, the house would creak, settle, but tonight it was too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you stop and listen, hoping to hear something reassuring, a hum, a whisper, anything. I passed by the mirror in the hallway, catching a glimpse of myself. I looked exhausted, eyes ringed with shadows, mouth a thin, hard line. But there was something else, something in the reflection that gave me pause. I turned back to look closer, studying my face. My eyes stared back at me, dull and tired, yet somehow off. They looked distant, as though they didn't belong to me. I shook my head, scolding myself for being paranoid. It was just fatigue. I pushed the thought aside and headed to the kitchen, hoping a glass of water would help shake the eerie feeling clinging to me. As I filled my glass, I felt a prickle on the back of my neck like I was being watched. I spun around, but the room was empty. My nerves were on edge, and I told myself to relax, as if hearing the words would make them more believable. But as I turned to head back to the hallway, I stopped. In the darkness of the room beyond, just visible through the kitchen doorway, I saw a figure standing in the hallway mirror. A chill ran down my spine. I forced myself to look again, but the figure was gone. It had just been my imagination, I told myself. Maybe a shadow, maybe the remnants of a long day. I exhaled, shaking my head, and made my way up the stairs to my bedroom. Sleep didn't come easily. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the stillness. After what felt like hours, I finally drifted off. Sometime in the dead of night, I jolted awake. My room was dark, shadows swallowing every corner, but there was a faint glow seeping through the door from the hallway. I had turned off every light before coming up to bed, hadn't I? The light seemed to grow brighter, a sickly, pale hue that bathed the edges of the room. And then I heard it, soft, barely audible at first, but unmistakable, whispering. It sounded close, right outside my door, as though someone were standing there, murmuring my name. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. For a moment, I considered calling out, but something held me back. Instead, I slid out of bed and moved toward the door, every step careful, quiet. When I reached it, I pressed my ear against the wood. The whispering stopped. A heavy, suffocating silence took its place. My hand hovered over the doorknob, shaking, but I couldn't bring myself to turn it. What if there was something, someone, waiting for me on the other side? Then, almost as if responding to my thoughts, the whispering resumed. This time, it was louder, clearer. The words weren't in any language I recognized, and yet they were undeniably directed at me, hissing and lilting in a way that twisted my stomach. I jerked back, nearly stumbling over my own feet, and watched in horrified fascination as the light under the door flickered, pulsing like it was alive. I backed away to my bed, too paralyzed to do anything but watch. Slowly, the light dimmed, fading until only darkness remained. The whispering stopped. But even after everything fell silent, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still there, standing on the other side of the door, watching and waiting. The next morning, I found myself lingering in the hallway by the mirror again. I hadn't slept after the incident, hadn't dared to open my bedroom door until daylight started creeping through the windows. Now, as I stared into my reflection, I noticed that strange, unsettling distance in my eyes again. They looked haunted, like they had seen something they shouldn't have. I rubbed my eyes, shaking off the chill, and headed to the bathroom to splash some water on my face. But as I closed the bathroom door, I saw something move out of the corner of my eye. The mirror. I froze, my eyes glued to the reflection. It was subtle but unmistakable. My reflection didn't mimic my movements. It was staring straight at me, a cold, blank expression on its face. I raised a hand and it stayed perfectly still, watching, waiting. Every instinct screamed at me to look away, but I couldn't. My reflection's mouth twitched, curling into a small, unnatural smile. It was my face, but it wasn't me. And then it spoke, the voice a hollow echo, layered with a strange, otherworldly cadence. Let me in. I stumbled backward, my hand grasping for the bathroom counter as I struggled to steady myself. The reflection's smile widened, its eyes gleaming with something dark and hungry. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog of terror that had settled over me. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be happening. But when I looked again, my reflection's face had pressed against the glass as though the surface were a thin membrane, one it was eager to push through. Its fingers, my fingers, pressed against the inside of the mirror, stretching the glass like liquid. The face in the mirror mouthed the words again, slow, deliberate. "Let me in." My body moved before my mind could process what was happening. I turned and ran, bolting out of the bathroom and down the stairs. But as I reached the front door, I glanced back, and there it was again, my reflection, staring at me from the hallway mirror. It tilted its head, grinning, the smile too wide, too unnatural. A pounding echoed in my ears, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once, the sound of my own heartbeat, or maybe something else, something closer. I fumbled with the doorknob, but my hands were shaking too badly to turn it. The reflection in the mirror raised its hand, and for a sickening moment, I thought it would break through, that it would pull itself out and take my place. I closed my eyes, whispering a silent plea, and finally managed to wrench the door open. I stumbled outside, the cold night air washing over me. I didn't dare look back. I couldn't. As I stood in the street, breathless, heart pounding, I finally gathered the courage to turn around. The house stood silent, empty. But in the faint light spilling from the hallway, I saw it. My reflection, still watching from the window, smiling with that too wide grin, waving slowly as I backed away. And then, as if acknowledging that it had all the time in the world, it mouthed two final words, "Come back."